Hello again and welcome to another podcast, the 20 Years of Women on Boards, with me, Claire Braund, co-founder and CEO of WOB. Today we're talking to long-term member Ditta Zizi, an Australian-based corporate governance strategist, arts leader and opera-trained singer. She's highly active in the ACT music and arts community, holding prominent roles on various boards and councils and also across the industry sector. Hello and welcome, Ditta.
Thank you.
Ditta, our early years are formative in shaping our values and our choices. Can you tell us a bit about your early life and key influences that have shaped you?
Okay, so I came to Australia having commenced my early education in Italy, and that included my musical education. So my key influences were my parents, being very traditional Italian parents. They instilled in me a very strong work ethic, a really deep love of music, and what it means to be Italian. And that's got so many layers to it that I won't even begin to go there. But those were my early years. And then, of course, my teachers. I went to a Catholic school, at that time run by nuns. By the time I finished, there were no nuns to be found. And the musicians I loved were really important to me. So, Blondie, Mozart, AC/DC, Verdi. So, you can see it's got all sorts of different things. And what I liked about them was that they were unconventional, all of them. And, of course, there's a sort of significant element of the tortured artist, which is very appealing when you're in your formative years. Once I started to work, I guess it was the senior leaders that I admired. And it was their strong leadership, their ethical decision-making. Even though at that time I hadn't really fully understood what that meant, but on reflection, I could really see that those things were important. The fact that they were fair, and they had a really strong evidence-based approach to their decision-making. I know that's very much a term that we use nowadays, but, for especially in the industry portfolio where I started my career, surrounded by really top-notch economists, it was always, always questioning, let's look at the data, what are the indicators telling us? So that was a strong part of my work makeup, I guess. And, of course, all these influences change over time.
What did your parents do for a profession, Ditta?
Well, my father was a carpenter, but a very specific kind of carpenter, a formwork carpenter. And my mother was a hairdresser, but when she came to Australia, she decided that she was just focused on her family. She had her own business when we were in Italy. Her career kind of came to an end, and as she focused on us in a very different and new environment.
Thank you. Back to music. It's very well documented, of course, that learning music strengthens a child's thinking, helps them focus, boosts learning, boosts well-being. Coming from Italy, and obviously with an embedded love of music, which went on, of course, to be an embedded love of opera particularly, do you believe that Australia sufficiently values the impact of music in our education sector and what we might do to be able to lift this or change this?
There's something in our wiring that attracts us to music. It's a cultural thing to a certain extent, but I think it's a very visceral thing. And, it soothes us, it excites us, it inspires us. So that doesn't matter how you experience the music, whether you play in a band or you're in a group or you're in an orchestra. And it's got some amazing benefits, as you mentioned. But one of the most important things that I see that are really relevant in our current society is that it teaches us team dynamics and empathy and communications. Going back to your question, I'm really sorry to say that the answer is no. And it's a conversation that I have over and over with professionals in the industry, with educators, and with people in general about the poor state of audience participation. And simply, it would appear that we do not value music education. It's usually an add-on, and when things get tough economically or otherwise, it's the first thing to drop off. There's a lot going on in our lives, and particularly in our crowded lives of our young people. And so when, HSC and other things come up, they drop out of orchestra or other music activities. Music is for everyone and it should be encouraged. And singing is a great way of getting people to participate in music making because you just bring yourself. Anything that exposes us to music is beneficial. It helps to build community. It's so satisfying. You talk to people who sing in choirs, and when they finish their session, there's a real buzz in the room afterwards because people's endorphins have been woken and they're, singing and breathing. Music making is as beneficial as getting out there or going to the gym. It has the same benefits.
You completed a Masters of Music at ANU and a founding member of a chamber opera company, Stopera, a renowned chamber company, of course, based in Canberra. Many of your board roles have been in the arts sector, including Art Song Canberra, Canberra International Music Festival and Music for Canberra. So how did you come to be enmeshed in ACT arts governance?
I've mentioned how I'm really committed to the fact that music is beneficial to our well-being and to our community and to our sense of identity. One of the interesting things about Canberra is there are a lot of cultural institutions here, so you would think that it's a rich governance kind of space. But quite rightly, most of these institutions are looking for directors who are often from outside of Canberra who've got strong philanthropic reach into other communities. So even though these organisations are here, mostly they're populated by directors who are not from Canberra. But on the other hand, there's a lot of not-for-profits and arts organisations here in Canberra, and they are equally keen to engage with people. And but while they're looking for expertise, there's no remuneration. So someone who's seeking a professional director's position, it's not really the place to be. And it's also a very challenging environment because it's a relatively small community in terms of public and private funding, and everyone is desperately looking for funding and for philanthropic support. So it's a challenging environment.
So what does your experience on arts boards teach you that has made you a better director on other boards, commercial and sort of regulatory boards?
I have to say that it's the other way around. It's bringing my business acumen and experience from regulatory and other, and even some of the public service experience, mostly the outward-facing experience. That's benefited me in my arts roles. So risk management is really, really super important. And having come from boards where risk management is key, it was really useful in being able to add value to an arts board. While the imperative is different in each of these areas, you've talked about regulatory, commercial, and the arts, the financial outcomes are couched in different terms, but you're still trying to get to the same place of, not trading insolvent. The fundamentals are the same, though. You're asking the same questions across all three, which is, what are you trying to achieve? How are we going to get there and how are we going to measure it? So often people in the arts will say, oh, no, we can't do any of that because that's all too hard and we're not here to make a profit. We're just here to stay in the business. And you have to question that approach because to stay in the business, you have to be financially structured. You have to be structured financially in a way that will keep you in that business.
You held senior positions at Department of Industry, Airservices Australia and Department of Education and Training. These were big executive roles. What did they teach you about governance?
I was really fortunate. I had great experiences in my executive career. I worked with really extremely excellent people. When I was with Airservices, I was actually the company secretary of a government business enterprise, and that I had some really top-notch chairs and top-shelf directors. I was very fortunate. And I also had the unfortunate opportunity of working during the global financial crisis while at Airservices, and that had significant implications for the organisation because it has investments. At that stage, it had international investments and all sorts of complications. So that was a real learning experience for me. I really earned my governance stripes there. And a whole lot of stakeholder management issues, union issues. It just went on forever. It was amazing. When I moved away from Airservices back into the industry, into the education department, I was really lucky to land a job working in national research infrastructure, and that meant that I was working with a lot of boards across a lot of universities, private sector organisations, and my governance skills really came to the fore there and further developed as I was working constantly across all sorts of different institutions, different governance structures, and when you're giving out grants and you're looking after boards for advice and committees, you really have to be on top of your game when it comes to governance and understanding where things go wrong, and they go wrong really fast. And then, of course, the outcomes or what happens is often happens in the public domain, and what happens in private companies can happen in government as well.
During your time in government, you served as a member on a number of OECD boards and committees. Does the international governance landscape differ greatly from that of Australia? And how hard is it to adapt to working within it?
It's a totally different environment, and you have to spend a lot of time negotiating, getting to know the position of your fellow members and coming to a shared understanding of the issues, which you think, oh, well, that's the kind of thing you do in a board, but it's not, because you've got a whole bunch of cultural filters that you have to work through, and understanding how the governance works in different jurisdictions is really important, how their financial structures work, how the money is appropriated. So when you're coming to the table, you understand that maybe the decision's already been made, and understanding that you have an opportunity to get in at the right point, to make your relationships, to understand what each individual jurisdiction is trying to achieve. I remember we spent weeks negotiating an increase in funding, and we thought we had everybody lined up. And all of a sudden, we were in the meeting to just basically endorse the recommendation for the fee increase, and one of the jurisdictions said, no, we can't support that, just out of the blue, after months and months of negotiations. And to this day, I still have no idea why the delegate decided to jump in that direction. But anyway, those are some of the challenges. But the good things that we as Australians generally bring is that we're known as straight shooters and pretty straight talkers, and so we're often welcomed into these forums because we have a reputation of being able to get things done. So I think it's important to understand who you're dealing with and take the time to get to know them and build the relationships. And sometimes you think you don't have time, but there's lots of ways of achieving that. I think it's really important to pay attention to that.
So what was the moment when you decided to pursue a portfolio board career rather than continuing an executive path?
Okay, so look, I dabbled in boards and things from when I was still at university. I was just interested in this whole environment. And I guess I came to a stage for personal reasons where I needed to make a break. And so I decided, having been a company secretary and all of that I would try to develop a portfolio career.
Board roles are increasingly being seen as a career choice for people who have left roles in the public service. But as you know, it takes much more than a decision or a governance qualification to secure those roles. So what advice would you give to women in public sector roles who are aiming for their first board appointments?
Yeah, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Really ask yourself, why are you doing this? So if you're looking for an income stream, and you're based in Canberra and you're not higher echelon SES level public servant, forget it. It's just not going to happen for you. And I know a lot of people who are frustrated and, why, I've got all these skills, I've done all these things. So, so have many, many other people out there, and they also have a significant level of industry experience. That's not to say that government sector experience is not valuable, but that, you have to understand where a company is pitching. Then they're going to want the most senior person they can possibly bring on board who has the most direct contacts into a board position. I guess I would ask What have you done that you think will be of interest to an external board, to a board that's not in the government sector? When companies are looking for public servants, they need to be the most senior, but also they usually want people who have broader experience than just being based in Canberra. So I have to say that probably if I had made the decision to have a portfolio career and I was based in Sydney or Melbourne, I'd probably have had more choice in what I might be able to choose. I would really work on creating my networks before leaving the public service. If there's an area where you want to go or you want to be interested or you're interested in, just understand what the board that you're aiming for is looking for, and then temper your expectations with that information. Track record is really important, so you have to be able to demonstrate that the experience you have or the exposure you've had is relevant to that board. Governance training is a given. It's not a skill that you bring. You have to have it. It's like being able to breathe or being able to get out of a chair. It's just expected that you're going to have it. Doing courses is good for you, for your personal development, but it's not going to give you an edge. And the other thing is it protects you from the environment that you're going into rather than you taking this governance skill and giving it to this organisation.
You've been a WOB member for many years, and in that time, as we've discussed, your board career has evolved. It's taken off. You've got the wonderful love of music. You're obviously a huge contributor at the governance level to the arts sector. Looking back, can you comment on the impact that WOB has had on your board journey and how you would describe the WOB community?
Okay, so for me, WOB's been an advocate, as you said, and I've been here for a while, for a long time, because I see it as an important. We need to support those organisations that are advocating for us, and I think that's what WOB does extremely well. It advocates for women in this sector, which even though we've made great strides, every once in a while something will come up and I'll look at the lineup of men and I'll say, where are the women? So you've still got much more work to do. And also they you provided a reality check for me and advice. So I found that extremely useful. Look, I've not always liked the feedback that I've gotten, especially from Ruth. I've applied for things and she said to me, yeah, that was an okay application, but you just weren't the best person for the job. And that's really hard feedback to take. But I think it's better than the silence that you often get from some processes. And also, learning from other women's experience and some of the more interesting courses that you offer, I think are really, really valuable. And I found them really stimulating, and I think that's really important. And it also gives you a sense of what's required in the broader sector.
Can you sum up your journey onto boards over the past 20 years in 3 words?
Yes, challenging but fun.
And finally, what's your favourite opera, and can you sing us a few bars?
No, I can't. I can't possibly tell you what my favourite are because I love them all. And there's just so much, and there's so many, and there's a lot of modern stuff that's coming on, and it's too rich, and I can't possibly decide. And I've long given up singing, except in the shower. Now I focus on supporting other singers by encouraging people to be philanthropic and giving money to the arts and other not-for-profit activities. So yeah, there you go.
Ditta, thank you very much for joining us at the Women on Boards podcast.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts with you.